Open Excel. Start a new workbook. Open Excel. Start a new workbook. And save it. Get data from CSV. Import product table. Click Transform Data. It will take me to Power Query Editor. Click Close and Load to. Select Only Create Connection and add this data to the data model. Repeat this process to import location table. Import date table. Import fact table. Go back to Power Query Editor. Select Product. Click View and check 3 boxes to enable exploratory data analysis. Change profile to entire dataset. Select columns 1 by 1 and record number of distinct values and number of unique values. If number of distinct values is equal to number of unique values, the column is a primary key. If number of distinct values is greater than number of unique values, the column is a foreign key. Click Home and Close and Load. Enable Power Pivot added in Excel. Click Power Pivot and Manage Data Model. Switch to Diagram View. Reposition dimension tables at the top and fact table at the bottom. Use primary key and foreign key to create one-to-many relationships between dimension tables and fact table.
I pause here. Okay, so great. We have 5 people, 7 people, including myself and Adam. Great. I assume all of you are recent grads or you're going to graduate soon. And I think a very common issue you will face when you start looking for work is you don't have the experience. And it's the problem of catch 22, 21, 21 or 22. Basically, you need a job to accumulate experience, but you need experience to find a job. You know, chicken and egg question, what comes first? Data jobs, I think, is a very special field. I think you can very quickly accumulate experience within a very short time. And you also have, you know, work samples or maybe a project or portfolio to show and convince the hiring manager that the experience is relevant, and you can even use it to connect yourself to the people with power, with opportunity, and eventually, you know, convince them to give you that opportunity. I think most people have worked with Excel, but probably very few of you have seen Excel in this. So this is called a data model. And some of you probably have used pivot table, but very few of you probably you know, create pivot table out of a data model. So I'm going to ask you to watch a few more minutes and to see the power and the magic of this data model. The most important thing, doesn't matter if you have had experience or if you had no experience at all, you know, working with data. The most important thing is to understand data structure. You know, how do we structure data into tables and database? A database is just a collection of related tables like this. You see four tables, they are related. And you can call four tables collectively a database. So if you understand this, this is the foundation. Data structure is the foundation of any data job. So if you understand this, if you know how to manipulate this, it's going to make everything else easy. So let's watch a few more minutes to see what we can do with this data model. You can use this data model to answer almost any questions related to, you know, the KPI or any part of this data model.
Create measures. Insert a pivot table from data model. Insert 7 slicers from 3-dimension tables. Rearrange slicers along 3 dimensions. Product, location, date. With Power Pivot Data Model, Pivot Table, and Slicer set up, I can answer any questions from business team. Here comes the first question. Which area code was 25th place in sales for espresso? Let me break down the question into dimensions and metrics. Step 1, filter product type. Step 2, add dimension area code to rows. And measure sales to values. Step 3, sort rows by sales in descending order from highest to lowest. Step 4, rank rows to show only top 25. Then the last row is number 25. Area code is 318. Restore slicers and pivotable. New question. Which state in the East Market has the lowest profit for espresso? Highlight dimensions in blue and measure in green. Step 1. Filter product type in market. Step 2. Add dimension stage rows. And measure profit to values. Step 3. Sort rows by profit in ascending order from lowest to highest. Step 4. Rank rows. First row has the lowest profit. State is New Hampshire. New question. What is the difference in budget profit in 201 to Q3 from the previous quarter for major market? Identify dimensions in blue and measure in green. Step 1. Filter market size. Step 2. Add dimension quarter to rows. And measure budget profit to values. Step 3 and 4. Add measure budget profit to values the second time. And show value as difference from previous. Step 5. Filter rows. Difference from previous is 630.
Okay, I'm going to pause here. There's a question from Matthew. When would it be more fitting to use Excel for pivot tables and Power BI, since they're both Microsoft products and they can both do the same thing? First, your question is half-truths. Excel and Power BI are designed for different things. It's true, you can use both to solve some of the same problems, but they are designed for different things. First, Excel. I think Excel is what most people use when you start to work with data. Excel is always a good starting point. And the good thing about Excel is data presentation is its default. What you see is what you get. So you can type data, you can change it, and it's very, very easy. And plus, in most organizations, your managers, Excel is probably how technical most managers are. So I think you can use Excel to impress them because they understand Excel. You can also use Excel to work with small data. So I think that's where you start to see the difference between Excel versus SQL, Excel versus Power BI. So SQL, you can use it to handle large amount of data. I'm talking about tables with greater than 1 million rows. And sometimes we have tables with 20 million rows or even more, right? So it's impossible for Excel to contain that amount of data. So you use SQL to manipulate data. Programming is very logical and it's 100% transparent versus if you use Excel, and some of you are very good at the manual steps within Excel, but the problem is you probably take 50 steps to get where you are. But even yourself, you can't remember exactly what you did, right? So let's say you will do the same kind of work every month when you receive new data. And this summer, you're going on vacation and you need your coworker to cover you. It's very hard to explain, uh, what you did and how you did it. And you will have to write, long uh, process by steps. And even that is not very clear. So to answer your question, Power BI is designed for visualization, but Power BI has a very important tool called Power Query Editor. In fact, you will find Power Query Editor in both Excel and Power BI. So if you use Power Query Editor, and then those steps are actually documented. So every step is documented. So it's like a small ETL tool, extract, transform, and node data, and it's totally 100% transparent. So you can use that to handle data cleaning, and, to maybe change the shape of data from wide to long and stuff like that. And then your coworker can completely understand what you did, right? But Power BI, the most important thing, you use it to build dashboard. And dashboard is how you communicate the insight back to the business team, okay? SQL is how you automate, the data processing, okay? You use SQL to process data. And maybe you don't need a huge amount of data go into Power BI, and then you can just select the columns you need, and you can filter the rows you need, and you only load the limited amount of data, just the right amount of data you need into Power BI. So that will make Power BI a lot more efficient when you run it. Okay. More questions. What do you think about Excel versus Google Sheets? Good question from Emma. Google Sheets, I think, has some very common features of Excel. So if you use Excel and then you switch to Google Sheet, it's very intuitive. But even Excel on MacBook, is not the same as Excel on Windows, and you notice that. For instance, the Power Query Editor and Power Pivot, you don't find it in Google Sheet or Excel on Mac, Excel designed for Mac. So there is a big difference. And if you want to cover more jobs, I strongly suggest, I know the world is divided into Mac users and Windows users. I strongly suggest that you, become familiar with Windows. And I strongly suggest you become familiar with Microsoft's product, including Excel, Power BI. You can run Power BI on Mac, but you cannot run the same kind of Excel. My mistake. You cannot run Power BI on Mac. You can only run Power BI and advanced Excel Windows. So if you're a Mac user, I suggest you either or you can borrow a Windows machine, or you can create a virtual machine on your MacBook, and then you can download, the Excel and Power BI and run them on Windows. Okay, so I want to continue with this. So you notice that the data model is extremely powerful. You can use it to answer most of the questions. But like, Matthew asked a question a while ago, when to choose what tool to solve what problem. That's the kind of decision I think you will learn to make in future. Anymore, just to make sure I understand, would using parallels on Mac be sufficient? Yes, it is sufficient. Just the keyboard is a little different. Sometimes, for instance, the forward slash or backslash in Mac is probably forward slash and Windows is backslash, and you will need to switch between the two. Otherwise, it should be sufficient. Yeah. Okay. So back to this. When do I stay with Excel, or when do I should switch to SQL, for instance? You notice that it's extremely easy to understand the process in Excel, but when you switch to SQL, especially for people who learn SQL the first time, you always wonder what's behind the screen, right? It's not a very direct experience. You don't actually see the data. That's because you use, for instance, MySQL Workbench. That's the client. You use it to grab data from the server. So server is supposed to be remote, either in the air-conditioned room of your company or on the cloud. But for learning purpose, we can install SQL on your local machine, on your computer. But you know that it's two different things. The data is actually stored in the database on the server, and you just use the client to retrieve the data that you need, and you can download it to Excel, or you can use Power BI to hook up with SQL and then do stuff, right? So I'm going to fast forward. So you will see we can solve the same kind of problem using SQL as well, but it's a lot more convenient. Okay.
Step 3, sort rows.
Maybe 2 questions.
Open SQL script. Start with question 1. Type basic SQL. Select from where? Group by. I need the tables. Product is P. Fact is F. First condition joins the tables on product ID. Second condition filters rows based on product type. I've completed step 1. Step 2, select the columns, area code, and sales. First golden rule, dimension area code and select statement must also appear in group by statement. Second golden rule, measure sales and select statement must be wrapped in an aggregate function, sum. Run it, and here is the result. Step 3, sort rows. Order by sales in descending order from highest to lowest. Run it, and here is the result. Step 4, rank rows. I'll use limit offset. In order to select the 25th row, I'll skip the first 24 rows. Start from the 25th row and return just 1 row. Run it, and area code is 318. Question 2, type basic SQL. I need 3 tables. Product is key. Location is L. And fact is F. First condition joins product and fact on product ID. Second condition joins location and fact on area code. Third condition filters rows on product type. Fourth condition filters rows on market. I've completed step 1. Step 2, select the columns, state, and profit. Dimension, state, and select statement must also appear in group by statement. Measure profit and select statement must be wrapped in sum is profit. Run it, and here is the result. Step 3, sort rows. Order by profit in ascending order from lowest to highest. Run it, and here is the result. Step 4, rank rows. I'll use limit 1. Run it, and state is New Hampshire.
I'm gonna stop here. I think you had the advantage of, seeing how the problem can be solved in Excel first. So you were familiar with the steps, the same 4 steps or 5 steps you took to solve the problem in Excel. You can mimic it. You can imitate the same steps in SQL. In fact, that is probably the most important way for you to learn how to code in SQL. Lots of people find SQL abstract and hard. SQL is not hard at all if you understand the steps you take to solve the problem. So 2 things. I said data structure is very important. Understand how data is organized into related tables in a database. How you connect the tables using primary and foreign keys. That's the first important thing. The second important thing, when you manipulate the data to solve a business problem, you don't just solve it in one step. You solve it in multiple steps. In this case, 4 steps or 5 steps. Doesn't matter how complex the problem is. You come down, you break it down into dimensions and measures, and then you figure out the steps you will take to solve the problem. And then you start coding, right? And every step you can run it, and then you will see if the result is what you expected. And then you go to the next step. Most people find hard to code in SQL. It's because they try to do all 5 steps in their brain, in their mind. That's almost impossible to do. If you break it down, if you break a complex problem into 4 or 5 steps, each step is actually pretty straightforward, right? So it's all about, what columns from which table, when you do filtering, and then you select rows, right? And sometimes it's a lower level of detail, sometimes it's higher level of details. So you need to group by. You group by dimensions, but for the measures, you have to wrap measures in a aggregate function. So it could be sum, could be count distinct, could be minimum, could be maximum, one of those, right? So if you know the principles, and then SQL become extremely easy. So now, question from Emma, is VBA in Excel still relevant? So VBA is actually can be used to handle any Microsoft Office application. VBA is outdated. VBA is end of life, end of support, and even Microsoft, no longer supports it. for most people like you and me, we use VBA to automate tasks within Excel. For most of the tasks you will need to handle, remember what I said. You can use Power Query to do it. And it's just so much easier and so much better. Okay. So stop using VBA if you intend to learn it, don't. It's a outdated tool. You don't have to learn it. From Matthew, I recently finished my data engineering certificate and I'm wondering what to do next. I'm trying to find a client project that keep my skills sharp. Okay, Matthew, I think you understand the difference between different data roles. So data engineering, you guys are actually building the infrastructure to automate, collection, processing of data, to automate maybe model development. So if you think, the data project is a house, data project is a house, and we need to use water. Water is data. Then you guys are building the plumbing, building the pipeline, right? So I'm assuming you've learned a lot of database management, how to provision storage and resources on the cloud. I think it's important for you to get familiar with different kinds of use cases in different industries. Of course, your energy will be focused on the infrastructure part of it, right? So chances are you will work with data analysts or data scientists, but your strength is to enable them to do a better job. Okay, so also, do you often use SQL window function? Yes, yes. In fact, you just touch upon a very important thing. Let me just show you something that I just recently finished over here. Okay, so this is a real case. A number of years ago, a student who just graduated from college, I think her major was in healthcare, but she studied data and she wanted to find the crossover, between data and healthcare. She did have a bit experience working in a sales role, I think selling medical device or medical equipment before she entered college. So she took the boot camp and I was actually her mentor. So I helped her to build the resume, and we wanted to target maybe pharmaceutical companies and hospitals, even government jobs like Ontario Health, right? Even retail like Loblaw Digital, or maybe Shoppers Drug Mart. There's always crossover, between pharmacy, medicine, medical care, primary care, secondary care, tertiary care, right, if you will. And these are not something, very deep that you don't have to go back to school to really learn this stuff. So I remember she got an interview, and it was from the teaching hospital of Western University. So it was a decision science specialist reporting directly to the director of decision science. So she received this project. Let me just show you. So later on, we turned this into a use case to train the students. Let me just make it bigger. Okay. So starting from here. So the data are CSV extracts from hospital information system, HITS in short. Each CSV file is named after its source table. The data is not entirely clean, and they did this on purpose. And the owner of the data source is unavailable to address any data quality issue. I think if I explain 2, 3, and 4, almost all of you understand the role, at least what this use case is about, right? First, a patient may have 1 or more visits to the hospital, which are date stamped. You notice that I highlight some of these business objects, and I can tell you they are also data objects. I mean, each one of them is a table. Patient is a table. Visit is a table. Date is a table, right? So let's go through number 3. I think number 3 is really, really important for you to understand the business, and it's also important for you to understand the data, underneath the business. So we will become expert. The best way to understand the business is through the data. Data is actually a shortcut to understanding the business. Okay, so a patient can have multiple visits. And during each visit, the patient is first admitted into the hospital or first registered as an inpatient when their condition requires 24/7 medical care. So this is very, very understandable. And then, the patient is moved by the nurse from location to location. So these are 2 additional business objects and also data objects, because each transfer is a table. Each location, is also in a table where they receive microbiology tests. So microbiology is a table, and they also receive surgeries or surgical procedure operation performed on them, and care from a team of microbiologists, surgeons, and nurses. So you started to see the actors of this business. So it's basically patients interact with microbiologists, surgeons, and nurses, right? Until their condition improves enough and they are finally discharged from the hospital. I think every one of you would agree with me. This is pretty easy to understand, right? Number 4 is a little technical, but if I explain, after I explain, you should understand too, because all of us have lived through COVID. So we did plenty of tests, and when it's positive, we know it's something bad. When it's negative, we know it's good. So when a microbiology test lists an organism, the test result is positive. That's bad, right? So when the organism present, that's bad. Otherwise, the test result is negative, which means sample clear. Okay, so here is the rest of the story. So I didn't help the students to do the test, so that's unethical. But I did give her a few pointers, and very quickly she got it. So she solved these cases. She solved it all in SQL. So these are the tasks: identify data quality issue and analyze their impacts, and create SQL queries and exports and outputs. First is the infection, a positive wound culture after surgery. We're interested in a report on infection count. So you start to see, infection count is the measure by organism present. So this is the dimension. Infection rate is the measure, and procedure is the dimension, and surgeon is the dimension, right? 30-day readmission rate. So this is the quality of care, right? So if the patient is tested after the surgery and the test was positive, and then that's bad because she got an infection after the surgery, right? So that's the quality of the surgery is not good. And the second is also about quality, 30-day readmission rate. So if the patient has multiple visits and the registration date time of the next visit is within 30 days of discharge date time of the current visit, that means the patient, we thought he recovered and his condition improved, so we discharge him. And then in less than 30 days, he come back again, right? So that's bad. That means he was not cured the first time, right? So it asks you to identify a visit with a 30-day readmission. And then, so 30-day readmission, this is a measure. And the length of stay, the number of days you stay during that visit. So that's another measure. Discharge unit and discharge surgeon. So this is the dimension. Discharge unit meaning the last unit before he was discharged, and the last doctor he saw before he was discharged. Okay, so this is quality, and this is efficiency of the process. It measures the lab, the microbiology lab. First, turnaround time, how fast they turn around, and the number of tests they can perform, right? So include the average standard deviation of turnaround time and number of tests by month by test by microbiologists, right? The last one is the capacity and the number of patients and capacity. So it counts the number of patients in your unit at midnight, and then asks you to present the data in a class step with dates as columns and units as rows, very specific, and aggregated to building and facility levels. And you notice that this is a dimension, right? So it's the location. The smallest, the lowest level of location is unit, and then, or maybe BADS, right? BADS is even lower level of location. And then units can go up to maybe buildings and go up to facility, right? So this is, in fact, so you can see the data. Let me just go to, so, oh, wait. I'm still developing this case. So you can see the data object. Remember, I think now you feel very comfortable, feel very familiar with, date, location, microbiology, patient, surgery, transfer, and visit. So just to answer the question, so we loaded the tables. Let me just refresh it. We loaded the table. Also, we need to use this database. So I'm gonna show you the data model. So when we create a table, we specify the primary key and primary and foreign key, right? Primary and foreign key. So we put the constraint in, and this is only possible after we understand the data structure, right? So let me just show you the data structure or the data model. This is not hard at all. It's not difficult. Everything start with the Excel. After a while, you understand all of it. Okay, this is the data model. So if I were to organize it, and this is the location, we have the date. Date is not connected to anything. So visit is definitely a fact table. So this is who, this is when, this is where, right? And this is another fact table. Surgery, microbiology is a fact table. This is also a fact table, right? Yeah. So if you know how to design a database like this, oh, I think you already succeeded 50%. So after that, solving the problem becomes easy. We do use window functions, for instance. So let's say the readmission rate. So you need to do something like this. actually started from here. What is this? So window function is a function over window, right? So the window is, remember, one patient can visit the hospital multiple times, right? So you can order, for this particular patient ID, so this is a partition. So every patient is a group, right? And then within this, for this patient, so you can order the visit, by registration date time. So now we want to find the registration date time of the next visit and put it beside the current visit. How did we do it? We use need, right? Remember need and nag? Need is one before, right? And nag is one after, right? So if you run this, so we can run it. The beauty of Excel is, if you put your cursor here, where it ends, right? So you can run this. You see? So you see the hierarchy, this is the patient, the visit. I want you to look at 10, patient 10. So 10. So he visited the hospital 2 times, right? And this is the first time registration and discharge. And this is the second time registration. You see, this day is put right beside here, and we give it a different name for this column. Next registration date time. So you got it? Why we do this? We need this to, minus the discharge day. Next, the difference between these two, if it's less than 30 days, then it's a readmission, right? So everything starts from there. And as I told you before, if you take steps, this question becomes doable. But if you're trying to do all of it in one step in your brain, that's impossible. Now, it's impossible to code this whole thing, right? To answer this one question, you need to take steps. You see nested query, query within query within query. And so that girl, when she finished this test, she did it all, right? I think the director was pretty convinced she can handle the job. Okay, so back to the question. No more question. Do you guys have more questions? Yeah, so if you look at this case, it's about 309 zip code. Okay, so maybe I can show you a bit because I'm trying to do the same problem using Power BI. You can do it. Let me show you. Not done, but I think you can still see it. First of all, if I show you the amount of data, you will notice it's hard to do this in Excel. Let me just show you the analysis of the data first. Okay, so you see these are the columns and table and columns, right? And the most important thing, figure out the data type and the distinct number of values, unique number of values. You notice, and this is not huge. I think Excel can still handle it, but it will sometimes crash the Excel. So this is 171,000. And if it's over 1 million, and then you can't do it, right, in Excel, right? So we also see the dimensions. It's important to understand the values of the dimension. So you start to understand the business. If you go to London, next time if you go to London, if you go to the teaching hospital, you will see the north wing and the south wing. And north, I don't know, maybe north has 2 buildings and south has 2 other buildings, and then the units within each building. So you start to get familiar with the location dimension, right? And the different actors within the hospital, microbiologists. So these they're doctors, but they're and their primary responsibility are testing, doing the test, and these are the results. I guess if you come from a Medicare background, you would understand this better, but you would also need to learn how to work with data, or you already know how to work with data with the help of ChatGPT or Google. You can understand that bit of the domain knowledge and then get the job. That's not a problem, right? And the point is, it's hard to find somebody who who are good at both, right? And coming from a medical background and also know how to work with data. But if you can demonstrate you are the closest, with a good combination of both, and you also communicate well, and then you have the job, right? You have the job in the back. Okay, so and you also have the surgeons. So these are the different procedures we perform on the patient. And after this, you pretend you already know a bit about how hospital works, right? Even better, this is me, I always do this. I will just take one patient, and let's say patient ID 10001. And then I will get all the records associated with this patient. So pretend I am the patient, and I visit the hospital 2 times, and this is, the beginning, the end, the beginning, the end. And then during my visit, I received this test, and these are the results. And I did, receive 1 surgery, right? And then I stayed in 5 different places, right, in this unit. You see, with one example, if you pretend you're a patient, I think it's pretty easy for you to understand the patient journey, and so you can understand the business, right? Okay, so Power BI. You see, it's a different game when you try to, work the same problem with Power BI. And just recently, Power BI launched a very new feature. It's called DAX query. You see, you can run query on DAX too, but it's different syntax. I think this will take a while for you to get familiar with, but if you understand SQL, this wouldn't be too hard. In fact, I was using ChatGPT the whole time. So what I did is convert SQL to DAX. And very quickly, I get a piece of code. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes I need to change something for it to work. So this is where you learn, how to leverage AI to solve problems and learn faster, right? Yeah. So first, you need to know how to ask the question, and second, when they give you the code, you know how to test it, right? So, for instance, the last question is actually not that straightforward. If you recall the last question, the daily census, count of patients in a unit and present the data in a class tab. Okay, let me take care of the question first. And in order, as someone who actually does have experience degrees in clinical, nice, healthcare as well as data science engineering, is there a way to actually have an application seen by a human being? I feel like I've been submitting these applications and whatnot, and never getting anywhere. And in order. That's the tricky part. I think none of us like it. So our resume will be read by both machine and human. I think somehow we will have to get the right number of keywords in the resume. But even when you are read the resume yourself, I like to use the analogy. If you read your own resume and you like it so much you can't put it down, I think it will be ready. It's ready to go to market. Okay, so Aninor, let me just show you one other example, in fact, when we talk about this. Just give me a sec. I collected so many tests from the hiring partners. I think one of them is Ontario Health. Here we go. So, what's the business? The business is, in fact, this lady, she just finished the bootcamp. Okay, it's short, so let's read it. Okay, so it's about PET scans in Ontario, the current state and considerations for future planning. They're hiring a analyst, I think, capacity planning. Please analyze the data, list any assumption, create a PowerPoint presentation. You will have 10 minutes to present your findings at the interview. The audience includes healthcare administrators and planners. So these are all government, so public sector. Okay, so if you look at the current state, you have two business objects, also data objects. So first is patient, the patient area where the patient lives, and the type of test, right? I'm no medical professional, but I try to understand it. And also the center area. I live in Vaughan, so if possible, I like to go to like a lab in Vaughan to have the test done. But it's possible. I can, if I can drive to Brampton or maybe Toronto to do the same thing if it's required, right? So the PowerPoint objective, the senior analyst will be responsible for capacity planning, including health human resources, so FTEs, or services, the type of test, and or capital infrastructure projects, let's say the equipment or machines, which have complex objectives and large system impact. So my role is capacity planning. So this is almost like her presentation. My role is capacity planning. If every patient who needs a PET scan gets one, then there is no need for capacity planning, right? My responsibility is to analyze the patients versus capacity across areas, centers, to identify the centers that are overutilized, meaning patients are underserved, and the centers that are underutilized, meaning the machines and FTEs are idling. You know, we want to avoid both situations. Solution is not as simple as adding more FTEs or investing in more machines. This is not simple. This costs money. I think the government spends, they have very limited budget, right? Which may not be possible due to budget constraint. Okay, assumption, every row in patient table is a patient visit. Don't you think this is very similar as a patient visit, right? If both center and center area allow, then patient wasn't served and PET scan wasn't performed on patient. We've heard and read about patients having to wait a long time to receive medical service. So there is a capacity constraint. So that's the assumption. Data model, turn on Excel, add in Power Pivot. So we use Power Pivot. Patient care, a patient table, 2 column center and center area, and capacity table, and go to the Power Pivot analysis. Just real quick, create pivot table from data model, create 4 KPI, patient, patients served, patients per machine, patients per FTE. So if you have the business sense, you would create something like this. So this is super important, just to see, just to compare across the centers, right? Created 4 slicers on one timeline to show distribution and trend of KPI along 5 dimensions: center, center area, type, patient area. Created 3 visuals on one table to build a dynamic interactive dashboard. Underserved patients over time, patients by FTE by center, patients per machine by center, patients, right? Conclusion here, patients increased, between 2009 and 2015. And these many patients were not served over 5.5 years. It's not necessarily a capacity problem. It's an optimization problem. Some centers operate over capacity while other centers operate under capacity, evidenced by uneven distribution of patients across centers. So the solution is to reallocate the capacity or reroute the patients to balance patients versus capacity over time, which is essentially my job, capacity planning, right? Okay, so you see, with that, she built a very simple dashboard and she got the job. Yay! And she did a very good presentation, I heard. So it's something like that, right? Yeah, so to answer the question from one of you, in this case, the Excel can do the job, no problem. And you see, you can click any center, everything else will change. And all right, so let me see the question. I thank you, Emma, for answering. You might want to look for virtual events related to your interests and then swap making URLs with source and non-US members. Excellent. So Matthew Dean, what type of coding questions do they ask in the technical interview? I've been studying linked lists. Oh, wow. Sorting algorithm and trees, but was wondering if I need to learn more about recursions and also graphs. I feel like the algorithm questions don't relate so much to DS. No, Matthew, it's good that you started practicing, some of the data structure and algorithm questions. The best resource is probably LeetCode. You can use different tools. You can use Java, you can use Python to solve them. But I heard this from a very effective instructor, actually a student turned instructor. You don't need to do too many problems. I think there's something like, a grind 65. So it basically says you need to do these 65 problems. Yeah, and you do it once and do it twice. The first time you probably spend, I don't know, you spend 3 hours to solve the problem. The second time, try to solve it in half the time. And maybe the third time, try to solve it in 1 hour or even less time. I really believe in, the imitation learning is key. Just try to read other people's code, how they solve the problem, because that might reflect, different logical steps or different thinking, right? And second time, the second thing is repetition. So I believe by repetition, you can build muscle memory. So the number of problems can be thousands, but the number of algorithms are limited. Probably 50, 65 are about right, right? So Matthew, I would suggest you practice the typical problems and do them multiple times so you're efficient, right? So when you are called to do a coding test, you can handle it. Okay. Any question before? I think it's 6 minutes after 1:30. Okay, and looks like a lot of hard work went into the presentation and it turned out good. Oh, I didn't actually prepare a lot because this is actually my daily effort, developing new material, helping the students to pass the interview. Yeah. How to connect with me? Just give me 1 second. Let me just put multiple things you can connect with me. Here we go. All right, so you can send me emails or you can book me for half an hour to talk about your particular circumstances, and maybe I can give you a few advices, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Yes. All right, I think that's short and crispy. Good question and answer. I hope the answer is good. Yeah, so that's it for the AMA 1 hour lunch and learn. Bye for now.